So, what does it mean to be truly authentic, and how does this idea of authenticity impact what it means to be whole or personhood? And so, like looking at yourself, how do you identify, and how is your identity, your chosen identity, based on your conceptualization of what it means to be authentically something? Does like how you define authenticity and your relationship to authenticity impact how you choose to identify?
And sort of as an extension of this, and these kind of go together, that's why we're saying them together. Do the languages, or does the language that you speak or that your ancestors spoke affect this concept of authenticity? So if you're the son of someone whose parents spoke a language but you don't speak it, do you feel less authentic, or does it make you feel more authentic in some manner? Or are there linguistic discourses of power that affect how you perceive the roles that the languages that you speak or that your ancestors spoke affect your choice of identity, and how authenticity of language plays a role in it?
Should we present the second question? Or?
I think we should start answering, right? So thank you so much.
I guess I don't mind answering first. So I guess the first thing, so I'll answer with 1 and 2, but I'll start with 2 because this is something that I always think about, is the fact that I don't speak Spanish makes me less authentic in whatever Hispanic or Mexican identity I have, because I'm not able, I feel like I wasn't allowed to identify with the Hispanic or Mexican community because I didn't speak Spanish. And like, you know, growing up, I guess it was different for my mother. It didn't matter to her. And I guess at that time frame, you know, whatever the population, like Spanish is becoming a very profound language in the US. And so like maybe during my mother's time, like it, you know, there weren't a whole lot of Spanish speakers. So like for her, it didn't matter. And like my grandmother growing up, it was like not okay for her to speak it. And so I feel like it's different for my mother because she doesn't care. I honestly don't know how, I should ask my mom how she identifies with herself. But it's very different because for me, I do feel like that was important, whereas it wasn't important for her. And I still don't feel authentic in my Hispanic or Mexican identity because I don't speak the language. Mm-hmm. And that maybe in some ways speaking the language would allow me to identify more with like the culture, because I feel like it's important. Mm-hmm. And then I guess overall authentic, I honestly hate thinking of it like that because I'm so unauthentic then, because I'm African American, I'm white, and I'm Hispanic, and nobody considers me authentic because it's like, how can you be authentic if being authentic, I feel like being authentic in this way means like having to identify specifically with one or another, and like you can't authentically be you can't be more than one. I don't know if that makes sense. And I guess for me, it just like my identity, like I just had to pick and choose what I liked, what was okay, and some of it has been imposed on me. There are aspects of my identity that I didn't get to choose and that I'm trying to change because like now feeling like woke, I guess, and like learning about different aspects of like my culture and like history regarding, you know, whatever it may be. I feel like I'm trying to change aspects of my identity that were not. Yeah, I hope those answer your questions. I got really flustered because I'm like, there's this camera over here. Normally it wouldn't matter, but yeah. So I hope that answers your guys' question.
Actually, so let me make a note. Let me make a note here because I think you mentioned the camera, but this is not live, which means that whatever.
It doesn't matter.
No. But whatever you decide that you don't want to be going to the billions, we'll remove. Okay,
no,
so
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, so I want you to feel totally comfortable that if you say anything that you feel should stay in the class here, I think it's okay. We'll just edit it and make sure that.
No, it's not about that. It's just
like having it. Like,
yeah,
okay.
the idea that somebody out there would end up watching or listening to.
But one thing that you have to think about, so I mean, which is actually key. So there are lots of other folks, you know, even younger than you. At least you can step back and, as you just said, you decide, okay, now I'm going to remove that from my identity. I'm going to make this choice. I'm going to think about what was imposed to myself. We see that how many people don't have this capacity to actually step back and self-analyze the way you just did. You see, so
I like to analyze myself.
yeah. So, but that's something that you're sharing with other people that might help them a lot, you know, because it frees you to be able to do that, right?
Sometimes.
It's a path to freedom in a way, self-liberation.
I think
Yeah.
it can also feel constraining at the same time because it's so hard to, you know, because I think like some of the things, like some of these things are so ingrained into society and like for different people, like how you see yourself in the world, and like it's really hard to change perception. Like for instance, like I've talked about this before, but like hair, like African American hair, and trying to change my perception of African American hair like relates in some ways to changing perceptions of my own identity because they're related, if that makes sense. So like,
of
I don't know.
course.
Yeah, other people.
I guess I don't know. I think it's like kind of unfair, not for you guys, because like we all do it, but like it's unfair to like use the word authentic when referring to something like identity or like culture or like a group of people, because it's like, I mean, I don't think it was a word that was intended for like a person. Like it's very much like one of those adjectives that's like for inanimate objects. You know, it's like it's for things that like don't have
Gold.
Yeah, like gold, like authentic, like something that you can like define, like okay, if something's authentically gold, that means it's like 100% gold. But like you can't like put bounds on things like people and cultures and identities to the point where you have like a concrete definition,
Right.
because no person's ever going to fit that perfect definition.
Right. But there's always been the tendency to try to quantize these. So you mentioned gold, right? So in the history of Haiti, there was this famous French, actually it was Creole French, meaning that he was of French ancestry, but he was born in the Caribbean. His name was Moorthi. And he had one chapter where he created this calculus of, he could compute 128 parts of black versus white. So he had this calculus of if you have black half white, then you're mulatto. If you're quarter black but 3/4 white, then you're quarter Roman. And he had terms, he had adjectives, talking about adjectives, he had adjectives for each of these categories. But how do you compute that? How can you look at someone and decide that they are 128 black versus the rest white?
Yeah.
You see, but there was this strong belief that you could do that, and that actually each of these partitions would define a particular set of biological characteristics. That if you were half black, half white, you would behave like this, so you would have physical properties along these lines. But if you were 1/4 white and 3/4 black, then you could predict what your behavior and your physique would actually look like. You can think of Jim Crow in the U.S. Like one drop of black blood, one drop of black blood would make you non-white, right? So, but it's good that we're able to think of it in these terms and try to remove ourselves from these affiliations.
So I guess like what I'm thinking about is, I remember you told this story like early in the semester about how like there are these documentarians from New York who like came to like do an interview
That's right.
with you,
I
and
was
like
thinking of that. Yes.
they were like felt bad because like the idea that like they were like less Haitian for not speaking Haitian Creole. So like I agree that like the idea of authenticity implies that there's like this paradigm like way to be an identity, but so I don't know, like it's not clear to me that it seems plausible that like the paradigm Haitian does speak Creole, though I don't know. I wonder about that.
I also feel like that I agree with that statement. However, I feel that maybe in the future it won't be a possible paradigm, just because of like migration and the fact that like there can be a Haitian who is like 3 generations away from that parent that was Haitian, and they're still allowed to say that they're Haitian. You know, they don't speak Creole. They maybe, I don't know, have whatever you can define as the paradigm Haitian. So I guess for now that might be a true statement to a certain extent, but I don't think that. But I think that that was the point of the concept of authenticity. Yeah.
And we saw that, so I'm glad you mentioned Achebe and Wachongo, right? Because they have a whole debate about what's an authentic African writer, right? And that was actually part of a bigger conference where they were debating what makes an authentic African writer.
But the problem is like the line drawing, like, oh, like you're not a real Haitian.
Yeah.
I guess like one thing I can add, piggybacking off what everyone said, but like I like a lot of your examples for like mixing or like different cultures and like not being authentic anymore. But like one thing I really liked that you guys brought up was the idea of like tracks and like especially what you said about India, where like when you think of India, there's like this one thing you think of, whether it's like the food or like the culture, and that's like very North Indian. So like I come from South India, and like as I came here, I like chose to be more Indian. Like I got more involved with like clubs on campus and stuff like that. But like the Indian I'm becoming is like very different than my actual heritage. So like so like I have all these like connections and like cultures that I think I'm like getting, but it's actually not really connected to my family at all. And I guess that's partially because I don't speak the language that they have, so like none of my culture came from like my family really. But also by not speaking that language, like everything about my culture from home, like whether it's religion or anything like that, it's kind of very separated from me. So I guess I kind of understand it, but I don't really understand like the roots of most of it. Whereas everything here that I'm learning, I'm like, oh, okay, like this makes sense. Like this is what everyone does. Like I'm gonna be like an Indian in America.
Okay. So I think that goes back to your question, right? Because if you think of who's now one of the best-known Haitian writers, it's Edwidge Danticat, right? That we've read in this class. And Edwidge, she was in Haiti until age 12, and then at age 12 she came to Brooklyn, New York, and now she's one of the best-known Haitian writers. And she sees herself as Haitian, you see, and she speaks Creole, but she doesn't write in Creole. You see, all of the texts that she's become famous for, they are English texts, you see. But for me, when I read Edwidge Danticat, as we did here in the class, I hear Haiti, I see Haiti, I feel Haiti. So she's managed to write as a Haitian, although she doesn't speak Creole, you see. And as she does so, she's also become a very powerful woman. Another case is Wyclef Jean, right? You guys know this hip-hop artist, Wyclef? So Wyclef has done so much for Haiti. In fact, at some point, he even wanted to be Haitian president, right? He ran, and he was actually, that's a good story actually, because he was excluded from running because he was not Haitian enough legally. He had spent too much time out of Haiti. But yet, he's one of the best-known Haitians in the world today. Wyclef Jean, because he's a major hip-hop artist, and he sings mostly in English, but he also has some songs in Creole to remind people that he's Haitian. You see, and he always, when he sings, when he goes to a concert, he wraps himself with a Haitian flag. You see, so he's very pro-Haitian without having the full inventory of what defines Haitianness. So I think I like what you said, Charlie, the idea that you can create your own Indian identity, Indian in America. And that's what identity should do for us. It should be an asset. It should be a tool for us to affirm ourselves in the world, not something that's going to hold us back. And if you look at the literature on stereotype threat, that's the way it works actually. So people who are being hindered in the performance because of identity is because of them being put in a box because of that. You see, what you guys are saying is that, well, we can use it in a way, like what you said, well, I'm going to create my own and be powerful with it and be happy with it. You see, not let other people put me in the box. You see, and I think that's what we should think about when people are imposing on us. What you describe is very moving, that you are imposed this identity that now you want to pull yourself away from. And eventually, if you do that well, you become happy, I think, right? Hopefully.